Hello everybody, welcome to my channel Life Beyond Vision. My name is Diego and this will be the story of how my journey into blindness began. Let's get to it. So it was 2009 and it was the summer right after my sophomore year. Usually during the summers, my family and I would go to Mexico for about a month and a half to visit my family in Michoacan. But that summer, I decided to stay back. I had three goals in mind. Number one was to get my driver's license. I wanted to be more independent, and I knew getting that driver's license was going to be a big part of it. Number two was, along with, getting a driver's license, I wanted to get a job. Getting a job would be having my own income, being able to do things on my own. But number three was the most important one to me, which was I wanted to train and condition to be at the best shape possible to start off my junior year soccer season well, that upcoming high school year. And so I had those three goals in mind. So my summer went on, and usually once the second week after high school was over, I started my routine, which my routine consisted of waking up at 6:30, and I would get up, eat, have a light little breakfast, and I would start my walk to the park around 7 o'clock. It would take me about 30 minutes to get to the park. Once I got to the park, I would run around the field, the soccer field, as many times as I could until my legs gave out pretty much. Every day trying to beat the record, trying to beat my previous day record. I cannot remember how many times I ran around the field, but I wanted to bring my stamina up. I would also practice my corner kicks. I would practice my free shots. I would practice dribbling the ball, and if there was people around, soccer's a friendly sport, I would engage in some friendly scrimmage games. Sometimes my friends would join me, and we would play some games as well. Sometimes my friends would join me, and we would play in the park for a little bit. I would usually stay in the park until like around 11 or 12, then I would start my walk back home. Once I got home, I would eat, and then I would do some summer homework. I was in AP courses that junior year. I was in advanced placement history, US history, and I was in advanced placements English. So I had some summer homework. My Mondays were the only days that I would not do this in the morning, as well as the weekends, because on Mondays, my family, we had this tradition that we would go to the park, and by my family I mean my big extended family, cousins, friends, uncles. We would go play soccer in the park around 7 o'clock or so, and so I reserved my energy for that. So June ended and July came along. Starting July, I kept on with my routine. July 4th was on a Saturday. By then, my family had gone to Mexico already, except my dad. So my dad and myself, we stayed back. My dad was going to go to Mexico around towards like the end of July, early August. One of my cousins was getting married early August, and so he was going to be there for the wedding. I stood strong with my plan, and I did not go. So July 4th was on a Saturday. We ended up spending it at one of my uncle's house. We had like a barbecue, a cookout. Sunday came along, and in the morning we went to mass. My dad and myself went to mass. And after mass, we went to, I believe it was my school's parking lot, and we were driving around a little bit. He was teaching me how to do turns and things like that, so I was driving the car. Then I got home and I did some homework, and that was the end of that day. So Monday morning, July 6th, 2009. I wake up like any other day, so I thought. But I feel a little weird. I noticed that my vision is blurry and it's not really adjusting like it's supposed to. In my nightstand, right at my view, I had a radio, and the radio had a blue light. It was like a circular blue light, bright neon blue, and in the middle it had the time. And I turned around and I saw the blue light, and it was really blurry, but I couldn't see the time. So I thought that's kind of weird, but maybe my eyes are just not adjusting well yet. I'm just waking up. So I got up and I changed into my clothes, and I noticed that things were a little blurry. I was a little sensitive to the light. something felt a little off. And so I kept on, once I finished changing, I wanted to read a little bit more of my book. I remember at the time I was reading The Things They Carried. That was for my AP US History class. And since my brother was not there, we actually, we shared a room. We had bunk beds, and since he wasn't there, I would use his bed for like all my papers and homework and things like that. So I had my book on top of his bed, and he slept in the top bunk. And I remember I grabbed the book, and I opened it to the chapter that I, stopped reading the day before. So I opened it to the page. It was around like chapter 19, and when I opened it to the place where the bookmark was, I noticed that I couldn't see the page. Well, actually, I could see the page, but I couldn't see the print on the page. And if I remember correctly, I was like, this page said chapter 19. But I was looking at it, and it was a blank page. And I was like, why is it blank? And so, in retrospect, I think about, denial, right? When you're in denial, you start looking for clues or for things that are going to prove you right? So what I started to do was I started flipping pages that I hadn't read yet, pages behind that. And I was like, what the fuck? They're all blank. So what came to my head was, these motherfuckers forgot to print the rest of the book. So I closed that book, threw it back in the bed. I was like, I'll deal with that later. Instead of flipping the other pages that I had already read and see that there was something wrong with me, I just, flipped it the other way, and it's the book's fault. So my day went on, and I started walking out of my room. My room was connected to the living room, and so I was standing in the door frame, right under the door frame, and to my right, my dad was sitting on the couch. To my left was the TV. And I'm staring at my dad, and I noticed that he's a big blob. A big blob sitting on top of another big blob, right? I know it's the couch, and I know it's my dad, but I can't see the texture. It's just like blurry, and I can't see my dad's face. I can't see if my dad's looking at me or looking at the TV. I just see kind of like a little bit of like his skin color and a little bit of his hair, and I could kind of think, I think he was wearing white, so it was like kind of obvious, and so I was a little freaked out, and then I turned around to the TV, and the TV was just blotches of color. It was just blotches of color, and I'm like, okay, now that's weird, right? So my dad's like, everything okay? And I said, yeah, I'm just waking up. My eyes just hurt a little bit. So I went to the kitchen and try and get myself something to eat, right? So I made myself a sandwich. I knew where everything was. And so then I decided to call my mom. My mom was in Mexico, as I had mentioned before. At the time, it was, I was 16. During that time, I can't even remember smartphones. I think they had just started coming out or something. So at the time, we still knew phone numbers by memory, right? We still had to memorize phone numbers. So I knew my mom's phone number from Mexico by memory, so I started dialing on the phone, and I called her. The reason why I called her was because I wanted to get a recipe for a salsa that she makes. And so, I called her, and I was like, oh, Mom, what are the ingredients that you put on your salsa? And so, she was telling me, and when she finished telling me that, I was like, Mom, there's something wrong with my vision. I can't really see. The best way I could describe it to you is as if I had just finished staring at the sun, and I looked away, and that, sunspots or whatever are still in my vision. But I'm like, and I just woke up, and it's been like that since I woke up. So my mom was like, oh, that's weird. If it continues like that during the day, tell your dad, so you guys go to the doctor. So the day went on, and once 6:30 came around, my dad asked me if I was going to go play soccer that day. Since it was a Monday, and usually Mondays, like I mentioned before, we go to the park and play soccer with the family. And I was like, yeah. So I grabbed my cleats, I grabbed my cones, I grabbed the soccer ball, my goalie gloves. Usually I play defense in the school. In my high school, I played right back. And so, but I also enjoyed goalie. I played goalie for some time. I really loved the thrill of being goalie. I was a little nervous because I knew I couldn't see, but at the same time I was like, I want to play. So, the day went on, we got to the park. When we got out the car, I kind of followed my dad. It was still daytime, so I just, tried to stay close to my dad. I realized I couldn't really tell people's faces, so, whenever they come up to say hi to me, I would just shake their hand, right? But sometimes I wouldn't know who it was. So day goes on, they set up the field with the cones and things like that. And, I asked to play forward. I knew I couldn't see that well, so I was like, you know what? I don't want to be, in the back defending. I don't want to have too much responsibility on me. So I went up to the front and I was like, I'll play forward. And so, it wasn't something too different, it wasn't something I didn't do before. So nobody was noticing anything different about me. So the game went on, and I remember I started noticing that I couldn't follow the ball. The ball would like come to one side and it would disappear when it would like go around the middle of my vision and then appear somewhere else. At one point, somebody like kicked the ball up, and I looked up and the ball just came right into my face. People laughed, and like, I laughed it off too, but I honestly didn't see it at all. Other people thought, I looked up and maybe the sun hit my eye or something, but no, like I just didn't see it at all. The game went on. At one point I ended up scoring a goal, which was, really, really lucky. It turned out, the ball came towards, somebody passed it to me and I just like one touch kick and it went in. So nobody really noticed things differently. Yeah, I was bumping into people, but soccer is also you have some contact when you're battling for the ball. So, people weren't really noticing anything different. So the day went on, and once it started getting a little darker, I set out. I said, you know what, I'm going out. So I set out, and when I was sitting out, my dad was like, "Are you okay? Usually, you don't get out this soon." Which was true. I still had RP. I still had that night blindness. So, my dad knew that, but it was still pretty early for me to sit down. And I was like, yeah, I'm just tired. So, the day went on. Once they all finished playing, it was really dark. And at that time, I couldn't see anything. Like, before I could still make some things out when I was, I only had, days before. But that day, I couldn't see anything. Like, I could see certain lights, like the big pole with the light, but it wouldn't like really help me for anything. And so I started to get a little anxious. But I heard my dad's voice, and I followed it until I got to him. And then I followed him. I followed him around. And anytime he would stop talking, I'll ask him a question in order for me to know where he was at, and so I could follow him. So then we started getting to the car. I continued doing that. I would just ask questions, or ask him something like where we're going, or this and that, in order for me to know where he was and for me to be able to follow his voice and not hit things. Right. We get to the car, and my dad's like, "Oh, we're gonna go get some gas." So I was like, "All right, cool." So we get to the gas station, and then that's when I'm like, "Okay, I gotta tell my dad." I'm like, "This is crazy. I can't see." So when we get out we start leaving the gas station, and I tell my dad, "You know what? There's something with my vision." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I can't see that well." And then we stop at a red light, and I tell him, my dad's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, usually I can see the cars in front of us. I can't see the color they are, but I can tell that it's a car, it's a truck, and I can kind of tell the shape of it, like a shadow. And I see the lights. I could clearly see the lights, right? The headlights. But now I see blurry. I just see the blurry headlights. I can't see the shape of the car at all. And then I'm like, and if I'm looking at the red light, it's just like a big blotchy red light. Like I can't see a clear red light like I used to." So my dad was like, "Okay, that's kind of, weird. We gotta, we'll make an appointment tomorrow and call the doctor and see what's going on." And I was like, "Okay." So we get home, go to sleep. I believe the next day was a Tuesday, and there was no appointment, so we had an appointment till Wednesday. Wednesday rolls around, and we go to the eye doctor, and the doctor was like, "Okay, Diego, once after he finishes all the tests that he did, he lets me know." He was like, "Diego, I have good news and bad news." And I'm like, "Well, what's the bad news?" And he's like, "The bad news is that a cataract grew in your left eye, in the part of your eye that was healthy, and basically the part of your eye that you can see through. That's why you're seeing very blurry." And I'm like, "Well, what's the good news?" And he's like, "The good news is that that there's surgery for this. It's a very simple surgery, and we replace your lens, and the only thing will be that you're gonna need reading glasses in order to read up close, right?" And I was like, I don't mind the reading glasses. I just want my vision back, right? So I was like, "Let's do it. When when can we do this? I need it as soon as possible." The doctor was going to go on vacation, I believe late July, and he didn't really have a date. And so he was saying that, it wouldn't have to wait until August. And I was like, no way, that cannot happen because, I have my soccer season and, I have all these other things that I want to do. I can't wait. And so, I had been going to this eye doctor for quite some time. So, he's like, oh, let me see what I can do. And then turned out he got me in for July 22nd. So July 22nd, 2009 was the day that he was going to be able to, I was going to be able to have surgery. And then he also mentioned, he's like, I know you really like soccer and you're worried about that, but I have to tell you that it takes 3 months to recover from this surgery. So you got to think about that too. And during the time where you're recovering, you can't be outside. You can't, do weights, do things like that. You can't strain your body that much. So it was a little disappointing because my junior year was going to be very important to me. That sophomore year, I was in the junior varsity team. I was a starter in every single game. I was a right back. And we had made it to the quarterfinals. We lost in the golden goal, but it was a great game. I played that full game all the way to the extra time. And, I was excited for my junior year because I was going to be in the varsity for the first time. And I knew that was coming, which was the reason why I wanted to be at the best shape possible, because I wanted so bad to be in the varsity team and to be a starter, right? But, slowly that goal started to seem further and further. So, I said, well, as long as I get my vision back and I'm able to play later, that's a sacrifice I'm going to have to make. I had no other choice, really. So, summer went on. July 22nd came around. My dad was actually supposed to leave before that date to Mexico, but he ended up staying 1 extra week in order to stay with me during the surgery and a few days after. So I went in for surgery and I was awake the whole time during the surgery. I had local anesthesia, I was drowsy as hell, but I was awake. Only this eye was open. Everything else was covered, and the doctor was talking to me during the whole time. Scariest part of the surgery was when he replaced the lens, because all of a sudden he's like, okay, Diego, I'm gonna replace the lens. And when he took my lens out, everything went dark. And for me, that was one of the scariest moments ever, because having your eye open and seeing nothing is scary. So, once you put the other lens in and I saw light, I was a little bit relieved, but, I couldn't see clear. It wasn't something that I could see his fingers or anything. No, I could see shadows. I could see shapes. Very, 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 very blurry. And so the surgery went well. I was in good shape. So once, they checked my blood pressure and all that after the surgery, I was able to go home within the hour. So I had to wear some sunglasses. I couldn't be outside like I had mentioned. And I had to take these really, really burning eye drops for the next month or so. And I hated it because, it was easy when my dad put them on me, because he would just grab my eye and put it in there. When I had to do it myself, it would take me some minutes, because it was one of those things where it's like, oh shit, I know this is going to hurt. Why would I allow myself to have my eye open when it's going to burn? And I know it burned a lot. So, for a while I had to do that. And when my dad went to Mexico, I stayed back. I was by myself in the house. My best friend and his family lived downstairs, so I would spend time with them. I would go eat with them. And, sometimes my friend would help me put those eye drops on me, and that was easier. But, so summer went on. It was fun because I was with my best friend and, with the family there, and I had some great times, but it was also kind of boring because when I was alone, I didn't really know what to do. I had to memorize the channels that I wanted to watch, and I couldn't really see the TV, so it was kind of weird. So for those 3 months, I had this hope, right? I had this hope because the doctor had said, okay, once these 3 months are over, Diego, you are going to be able to see like before from far, right? Your far vision, you're going to be able to see like before. But after the 3 months, you gotta come back to get this laser cleaning because there's some liquid's gonna accumulate in your eye, and once with the laser cleaning, we'll be able to get rid of that, and then you're gonna be able to see better, right? So for the next, I needed to see something in order for me to know that my vision was getting better. So remember that radio that I had with the blue light? Well, that was one thing. Every morning for those 3 months, I would wake up and I would turn around to my nightstand and I would hope to see the time in that blue light. Every day for those 3 months, I would wake up, turn around, first thing I would do in the morning, and try and see if I could see the time in the middle. Another thing I had to do was I had to buy a magnifying glass in order to see my phone. I had one of those flip phones. I got really good at T9, if you guys know what I'm talking about. And so I would use the magnifier. So usually I had to use both hands, right? I had to use my magnifier, and then I would put it in the large print, and I would still have to use my magnifier to make it clear. I had to buy some reading glasses. And so my summer went on. Those 3 months passed. I kid you not. October 22nd, 2009. I got up. I looked at the radio and I noticed it had gotten better for those 3 months, but I still couldn't see the time in the middle. Like it got less blurry and less blurry as months went by, but I still couldn't see the thing in the middle. I couldn't see the time in the middle. So I reminded myself, hey, you still have to go to that laser cleaning. You'll be, maybe it's just that. But on that day, I called my friends and I was like, hey guys, let's go play soccer. So I grabbed my ball, I grabbed my, my cleats, I grabbed my cones, I grabbed my goalie gloves, and I was like, let's go. So we get to the park, and boy was I disappointed. Since when I left my house, I started noticing how the things around me look. The best way I can describe it is. I can scratch my nose. The best way I could describe it is, it looked fake. Like it looked like as if I was in a bad old video game, right? With bad pixels. Things around me looked very pixely, like pixels. That's what things look like. When I looked at the grass, it looked fake. It looked like fake grass, like pixels. That's what it looked like. And I was like, why does it look like that, right? I didn't enjoy playing soccer because it was hard for me to follow the ball, and it was a gloomy day, and it was just, things kind of just blended in together sometimes, and I just, so I ended up, going to the side by myself and being, I think I still can't play. In the back of my mind, I had, maybe it's just that laser cleaning. Once that's over, I'll be able to see again. So we made the appointment for that. And once that happened, I went in that following week and I got that laser cleaning, right? Which was pretty painful because it actually felt like an hour, but it was probably just 30 minutes. And basically what it was I was sitting down in front of the machine, or the laser was pointed in my eye, and my eye was primed open with something. And the doctor would shoot these laser into my eye, right? And I could feel the static when it would shock me. It was just weird, but it would hurt because it was like a flash / shock, right? So he just kept on doing that, just shooting at my eye, and so my eye was fatigued. It was super fatigued of just looking into a bright light. So, but I was whatever, I just gotta get through this. Once that was over, he patched my eye, and he's like, all right, tomorrow morning, still use sunglasses. You're gonna be very sensitive, but your vision should be better. So I got home with all this hope of, being able to see again. I remember it was at night when that happened. So, I just got to go home, sleep. I woke up in the morning and, had all this hope built in me. And I turned around to my nightstand and I still couldn't see it. I still saw blurry and I couldn't see the time in the middle. So, I still thought to myself, maybe later on it's going to get better. Maybe, it needs a little bit more time. The day was over and my vision was still not to the point where I thought it should be at, right? So about a week passed, and my vision was not changing. I was like, I still can't see like I saw before from far. What is wrong? What's going on? So we made another appointment with the eye doctor. That time my mom went with me. We get to the eye doctor, and I get there and I'm like, there's something wrong with my eye still. I don't understand. I still can't see as good as I should be seeing. Something is wrong. And so the doctor does some test. He looks into my eye and then he takes a picture of my eye. Just quick thing, when they take a picture of your eye should be pink, right? Because that's a healthy eye, and the light's able to go through your eye, right? Because it's pink. Well, when you have RP, which is what I have, retinitis pigmentosa, we have black pigment, and that is basically dead cells or dead tissue, and that basically that black pigment doesn't allow the light to go through. So he took a picture of my eye, and then he came out and he was like, Diego, I have bad news for you. And in the back of my head, I thought, shit, it's my RP. But then I didn't want to believe it, so I was like, no, I had, it's probably something with my, with the surgery, maybe something can be done or something. I don't know. And so he's like, Diego, look. He's like, he brought the 3 pictures. The first one was a picture of my eye from January when I was healthy, and I could still see at the time. The second picture was my eye from when I had the cataract. So it was like from around July or August. No, July, because August I didn't have the cataract anymore. And then the third picture was the eye from that day. And he's like, Diego, your RP has progressed. Because if you compare the picture from January to the picture from today, you could see that there's more black pigment, right? And so that means that my RP had progressed. My retinitis pigmentosa, the condition that I have, I lost more vision. So when I got that news, like my heart sank, right? Because I started thinking of everything. Everything just flashed before me in terms of like my goals. At that time, I was like, well, my soccer goal went out the window. Wasn't gonna happen. I wasn't gonna play in this varsity soccer team. Didn't get a job, and now I don't know how I'm gonna get a job because I can't see. And number 3 was driving. I thought I was gonna be able to drive, so there was nothing there. So that went, just all these thoughts began to come to my head, and I didn't cry. I didn't, I guess I was shocked. So I didn't know what to say. I just kind of said, okay, just nodded, okay, thank you for the news. I don't know what I said, but I just remember that day getting home and saying nothing to my mom, to my family. I just remember getting home, going straight to my room, and looking at my radio in my nightstand, unplugging it, rolling it up, and just pushing it to the back of my nightstand, and just knowing that my hope of being able to see was gone. Because I just knew I wasn't gonna be able to see as good as before, and that's where my story began.